Sabi nga nung isang kanta ni Anita Black, the closer I get to you, the closer I get to you, the more that you make me see. Totoo yun. So the closer you get close to Jesus, the more that you know Him. Ang tanong ko sa inyo ngayon is, how close are you with Jesus? Have you asked that question to you? What if Jesus asked you this question? Who do you say I am? How are you going to answer that question? Natanong na ba yan ninyo? Di pa. So to help us answer that question and hopefully open your mind to sa question na yan is our speaker for today. So let me call on and turn over the mic to Mr. Archie Inlong.
How many of you have driver's licenses? So would you raise your hand if you have a driver's license? Thank you. How many of you actually drive? And how many of you are driving without driver's licenses? Now, there's a reason I ask you that question. I love asking people this question. Actually, it's part of my usual business discussions, business conversations. And you should try it sometime. Ask people, do they drive? And the other powerful question is, what part of the driving experience do you like a lot? You see, here's what I found out. The way people drive, it tells a lot about themselves. The way people drive tells a lot about themselves. There are overtakers. There are racers on the road. There are people who say, I don't enjoy the driving experience at all. I just want to get into the driver's seat and then arrive at my destination. What do you like about the driving experience? Now, some people tell me, I will never drive. I would just want to be at the driver's. I just want to be a passenger. What the way you look at the road experience tells a lot about the kind of person you are. How many of you can drive a stick shift, a manual? Fantastic, huh? Good. How many of you can only drive a car with automatic transmission? No problem, no problem. Good, good. My sister refuses to drive automatic transmission. All of her cars are manual transmission. Reason, she says, I want to be in full control. So her preference for the type of cars that she drives tells a lot about herself. Now, I like driving, and when I drive, it is not about getting to the destination. I like the drive. I like the drive. I like the turns. You know, when you have to make a left turn or a right turn, I like that point. I like that point. Because when you have to make a left turn or a right turn, you actually have to slow down. I like it when I slow down. Because when you are driving and you are used to driving, do you know that you actually multitask? You're thinking of what the next meeting will be, what I will eat for dinner, the person I hate today. And at the same time, you're driving. But when you have to make a left turn or a right turn, you throw away all the thoughts, and for a brief moment, you have to focus when you make a turn. There's one more reason why I like the turns. They're like life. They're like life. When you make a left turn or a right turn, you actually do not know what you will find out when you make the turn. Sometimes you will be delighted by what you will discover when you make a turn. You will discover that you made the right turn because traffic is lighter when you made the turn. Sometimes you will be disappointed. The turn was a wrong decision after all. Traffic was worse when you made the turn. delight, disappointments. So much like life. The point where you make the turn, that's what you call turning points. Turning points. And turning points, they have some kind of a finality. It's not like a detour. A detour is getting back into the same direction. But turning points, when you make the turn, that's where you go. That's where you go. You are departing from the straight path you were earlier taking. I love turning points. I love turning points. Two possibilities. Turning points, delight, disappointment, but nevertheless, the unexpected. Now, 38 years ago, I made a turning point, not on the road, but on life. I was 25 years old then, and I was part of the very first Christian Life program that was ever held in the Philippines. So when I say I am CLP Batch 1, I am not CLP Batch 1 Taguig or Makati, I am CLP Batch 1 History. And the turning point was when I heard this talk. Who is Jesus Christ? It was the very first talk of the very first CLP. And I was listening to the very first speaker, who happened to be my boss. Reason why I was at the CLP? My boss. Has anything changed? No, but that was really a turning point. You know, I was 25 years old. I was sitting there. It was not a good time of my life. I had just quit a job that I loved so much. I had just dropped out of law school. And you know why I dropped out? Because my fraternity at law school was into a very serious rumble. I could not get back. If I tried to enroll again and study, I ran the risk of being mauled in a fraternity rumble. During my time, fraternity rumbles were bad. It was a bad point in my life. I did not know whether I was making a detour or I was just making a turn. But the fact is, 38 years ago, I was sitting there, ready to listen to the very first talk of the very first CLP in the history of the Brotherhood of Christian Businessmen and Professionals. And the first talk was, who is Jesus Christ? And the first speaker was my boss. So I had to listen, as I always do every day, to him. Now, there was something very interesting in that talk. It was not your usual religion class or catechism class talk about who is Jesus Christ. It was different. It was a very simple, straight-to-the-point talk. And he only talked about 3 things about Jesus Christ. You see, I am 62 years old now. 62. I was 25 years old when I heard this talk. But I have not forgotten any detail of this talk. At 65, you forget a lot of things. You know, they invited me to BCBP Alabang East one time, and I forgot where I placed my car keys. And I said, where are my car keys? 62, you forget. And then I actually forgot that I did not even bring my car. See, bad. But this particular talk, I did not forget. Okay. And let me share with you what I heard during that night. Makati Sports Club. The year 1981. 3 things. He said, first he talked about who Jesus Christ was. And then he talked about what Jesus Christ did. And then here's the most interesting part. What Jesus Christ said. Who he was, what he did, and what he said. Now, I will share with you exactly what I heard on the first part. Who Jesus Christ was. Very interesting. And I was hearing it presented this way for the first time. First, he told me this. He said that based on current standards, if you base it the way we look at people today, Jesus Christ should not even be famous. Based on current standards, Jesus Christ should not even be famous. He said, consider the following. This Jesus Christ never traveled farther than 200 kilometers from where he was. 200 kilometers is Manila, Subic, Manila. That's it. That's as far as Jesus Christ ever traveled. He never went to a city where the population was in excess of 50,000. What city in the Philippines today would be less than 50,000? You don't have cities with 50,000 anymore. 50,000 is the number of people waiting for a bus ride at the corner of Shaw and EDSA. Now listen to this. Jesus Christ never ever wrote a book. He was not even educated. He did not even have rich parents. He was the son of a carpenter. And if you review what was told about him in Scripture, you will read there that he had 12 apostles and he had 72 disciples. Listen to the numbers. 12 apostles, 72 disciples. Disciples are followers. Apostles are friends. 12 friends, 72 followers. How many do you have on Facebook, huh? If this guy were on Facebook today, 12 friends, 72 followers, he is not even an influencer. You will pity him for having 12 friends, 72 followers. And come to think of it, one friend unfollowed him. So come to think of it, by current standards, this guy is not supposed to be famous. Yet today, this Jesus Christ is the most beloved character in human history. Why? What's so special about him? Come to think of this. Human history is divided into two parts. You have a BC and an AD. BC is before Christ. So all the dinosaurs before Christ. AD is Anno Domini, literally translated in the year of the Lord. And definitely the Lord being referred to there is Jesus Christ. So this guy, who only had 12 friends, 72 followers, never traveled more than 200 kilometers away from his hometown, wasn't educated, wasn't rich, divided human history into two. So what's so special with him? So even if you do not believe him, you will have to reckon history on the basis of when he was born and after he died. Here's the other thing. In the Philippines and in the rest of Latin America, the most number of children named after a person was Jesus. In the Philippines, how many kids are named Jesus? How many places are called Barangay Corazon de Jesus? He is just so famous. When he died, 12 friends, 72 followers, divided history, and still very famous. And the Bible, the book about his life, is still one of the best sellers of all times. Bestseller of all times. Even when they invented online publishing, it's still the most read book today, the book about him. So that was who he was. And that got me thinking, what's so special about him? What is so special about him? And then the speaker brought me to the second part, what Jesus Christ did. Well, so-so, not so interesting, because many of this stuff we heard already. Like Jesus Christ raised dead people from the dead. Not interesting. He fed 5,000 people with a few loaves of bread and fish. Not so interesting. I know some caterers who can do that. Not interesting. But what was interesting was he was rock star quality. He was rock star. He was rock star. His was a kind of personality that you just cannot ignore. You would either hate him or love him. This was a guy for whom those who stuck it out with him died for him. Died for him. And you know how his friends died for him? These were not easy deaths. Of the 11 apostles who remained faithful, only one died of natural consequences, John. The rest died of cruel death, stoned, dipped in burning oil, crucified upside down, humiliated, embarrassed before they were killed. Why would they die for a guy like this? There must be something special about him. And going back to the time he fed 5,000 people with a few loaves of bread and fishes. Now let's talk about the numbers. Let's not talk about the party. The numbers, 5,000. 5,000 was 30% of the entire population of that city where he was talking. 30%. Let's forget numbers. Let's talk percentage. Who is the personality today who can get 30% of the entire city to come and listen to him with no free tickets, no promise of food? Open air, no air conditioning. And they stuck it out with him. They were listening to him. They had to bring their own food. They had to, these guys lived hand to mouth. But they left their jobs, left their work for the day, and listened to him. Rock star quality. What's so special about him? And for the first time in my life, 38 years ago, my eyes were opening wide upon the realization of these realities. This was a person you cannot take for granted. Who he was and what he did. Now finally, the speaker of that day came to the point where he shared with us what Jesus Christ said. This was what made me pay real close attention. And I'd like you to do that to yourself, with yourselves today. Listen, close attention. You may have heard these words before, but listen to these words again today. Because these words you cannot take for granted. When you hear them, you have to make a decision about the guy who said these words. Now let's sample a few. Jesus Christ said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Well, no problem. First line, no problem. But listen to the next line. Back to the first line. I am the vine, you are the branches. No problem with that statement. Cute. Okay. Good to put in a postcard or in a poster or in a post. Okay. But there is a problem with the second and the third line. This is what he said. Abide in me. Abide in me means stick it out with me. Stick it out with me. Now, here's the crucial part. Imagine somebody saying this to you. Imagine somebody saying this to you. Jesus Christ said, abide with me, for apart from me, you can do nothing. How would you feel if somebody tells you, apart from me, you can do nothing? And this is a stranger telling you, apart from me, you can do nothing. Now, here's one more. Jesus Christ, during his lifetime, had this big habit of forgiving people. He forgave people. No problem with forgiving people. How do they call you again? Jaime. How do your friends call you? Jaime. So may I call you Jaime?
Yeah.
That makes us friends.
Yeah.
Jaime, have you ever had a quarrel with your wife?
A few.
Just out of curiosity, was there any quarrel with your wife which you actually started? Or is it always the other way around?
Yeah, to be fair, I started a few.
You started a few, she started many? Is that what you're trying to say? So Jaime, you started a few. Reality, fact of life. Now, when you felt you started the quarrel, did you do you ever remember having said, "Would you forgive me"? Did you ever ask forgiveness from her?
Sometimes.
Okay. Have you actually heard her say, "I forgive you"?
No. Not the words.
But the words would be somewhat like, okay. So she actually forgave. The fact that she forgave. Okay. Does she have the right to forgive you? Right to forgive you. I guess she does.
I guess
because the wrong was done to her. So listen to this. When the wrong is done to you, you're the only person who can forgive that other person, right? Now suppose Jaime, I come walking to you one day, and I said, Jaime, you quarreled with your wife today, didn't you? And Jaime, who started? And you say, you did. How would you feel when they say, well, Jaime, I forgive you?
Okay.
two things you will think about me. Only two possibilities. The first possibility is I'm out of my mind. What right do I have to forgive your offense against another person? If it were against me, I would have the right. Okay. The other thing you might want to you would think is, I probably think I'm God. Because only God has the right to forgive somebody who committed an offense against another person. But that was exactly what Jesus Christ was doing. He was forgiving people for wrong they have committed against somebody else. That puzzled a lot of people. He was somebody who was claiming he had the power to forgive. Now here's the other thing. Jesus Christ said, I and the Father are one. I and the Father are one. Is there anyone here who ever worked in politics? Okay, good. I will now make a confession. Okay, I'm 62 years old. I am what you would call a political coach. So part of my job is coaching politicians. Those who have already been elected and those who are running for public office. So today I'm busy. I'm coaching candidates these days. I coach candidates and I train them how to tell the truth effectively and clearly. Someday I will succeed. Someday. Okay? So today I'm content with just being paid. You see, there's a little practice in government circles, especially in local governments. If you have done business with local governments, you need something from City Hall. I'm sure you needed a permit, a business permit, or a license. If you're doing significant business with local government, especially if you are a contractor, there will always be one character in City Hall who will tell you that he is the bridge to the mayor. You would hate that guy. You would hate that guy. Okay? But because that guy is effectively telling you, I collect also for the mayor. Okay? They are called brokers, fixers. Brokers and fixers. Okay? They're usually the bad characters in local government. But that was exactly what Jesus Christ was saying. I and the Father are one. And then he capped that with a very unforgettable statement. Listen to this. He said, listen to this. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He was talking to people whose most important goal in life is to get to the Father. If your most important goal in life is to experience God, and then here is somebody who steps in and says, hey, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. How would you feel? What would you think about him? There's a little problem with the way our Lord Jesus Christ phrased that claim. He said, I am the. He didn't say, I am a way, a truth, and a life. He said, I am the. He was claiming exclusivity. There's no other way except him. How would you feel if you were there listening to those words? One last very important words uttered by him. Listen to this. He said, I am the bread of life. I am the bread of life. Now, we are so used to hearing those words, I am the bread of life. But if we were living during Jesus' time, it will have a very special meaning to us. You see, at the time when Jesus Christ was still walking on earth, a lot of people were poor. A lot of people were poor. And bread was one of the most important things that mattered to them. Bread. Basic bread. They need bread. Okay. Bread stood for what they needed most. Today, bread is just one of the many things we have. Bread is when bread is you do not want the carbs that rice gives you. And today you have lots of choices. You have whole wheat bread, you have white bread, you even have keto bread made of almond flour, you have all kinds of bread. But at that time, people just wanted just plain bread because we are hungry. Now, people today have never experienced the hunger that people of Jesus' time have experienced. Today, if anyone in this room claims to have been hungry, you're probably doing IF. Intermittent fast. But at the time of Jesus' life, when people were hungry, it was because there was no food. Scarcity. So they wanted bread. It represented the deepest longing, the most important thing they wanted in life. And so Jesus Christ said, hey, I am your bread. I am the person who will fill the most important longing in your hearts. And if I am the bread you eat, I will satisfy your deepest longing. Now that's a very strange language. That was a very intrusive language. He wanted people to make him the center of their lives. He was saying, I am the answer to your every question. If you have me in your life, you will hardly look for anything else. That was what Jesus Christ said. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem here. If we paid close attention to what Jesus Christ did, who he was, and what he said, we have no choice but to come to a conclusion that this guy wasn't teaching. Jesus Christ wasn't teaching. In fact, during my earlier years, I had this strange notion just that Jesus Christ was a great teacher. You know what happened to me 38 years ago? When I heard this talk, I had to throw away that idea that Jesus Christ was a great teacher. He was not a great teacher. He was not. Let's not kid ourselves. If you listen to the words he said, these were not the words of a teacher. He wasn't teaching anything. He was making claims. He was making claims. He was telling people, this is me. I'm your only answer. I'm your only way. So the single most important conclusion I made that day 38 years ago, finally, I'm being confronted by one question. The question is, who is Jesus Christ to me? Who is Jesus Christ to me? Tough choice. Tough choice. Because at that time, I could no longer pretend that Jesus Christ was just one lovable character. He was not a lovable character. He was not a lovable character. That if he was not a lovable character because he made claims that no ordinary person would make, then what was he? The only other choice is, then I have to believe his claims. I have to hold on to what he said he was. That he and the Father are one, that he is God, that he is the vine and I am a branch, that apart from him I can do nothing. That if the experience of God the Father is the most important thing in my life, then he is the way, he is the truth, and he is the life. And I cannot come to the Father except through him. I will have to accept, hug, hold on, and live by those truths. So those were the two choices. And interestingly, at 25 I realized it was time to make a choice. At that time when I heard this talk, I was going through tough times. The most difficult part of my life then was that I was dealing with was this thing called it was called anger. Anger. I was a very angry 25-year-old. It's not the anger that explodes. It's a dangerous kind of anger. You know, this silent anger. It's just there in your heart. It's seething and it grows every day. It's the cold kind of anger. It's an internal rage. And I was asking myself, why am I so angry? And I discovered I was so angry because I've been rejected, I've been disappointed, I am not getting from life what I wanted from it. And I had this little game I played. I kept a little notebook in my pocket. And in that notebook, I wrote down the names of people. People who made me angry. My professor, my grandmother, the members of the other fraternity, my rival in campus politics, my best friend who ran away with my girlfriend, my girlfriend who ran away with my best friend. They were all there. They were all there. And you know why I wrote them down? You know why I wrote them down? I said, one day, I will erase each name. I will erase each name. Only after I have exacted my revenge. That was how angry I was. Now, there was something difficult about being very, very angry that way. Anger dictated my life. I was making decisions based on anger. And I discovered that you cannot hide anger, it will show on your face. And one day when I was dressing up for work, I chanced upon the mirror, and you know what I said? Wow, who's that angry man? That's a very angry man. And I discovered that the reflection on the mirror was me. And I realized that there are things in my life over which I had no power. There were things in my life which were actually running my life. And you know how you call those things that run your life? You call them your Lord. Anything and anyone who runs your life, that's your Lord. And anger was my Lord. And I did not know how to become free from anger until I heard this talk. Because there was one more thing the speaker that night said about Jesus. I cannot forget those words. These were words said about Jesus. It came from the prophet Isaiah. He said, the prophet said about Jesus, the words were, "We have all gone astray like sheep, each following his own way. But the Lord laid upon him the guilt of us all." What the speaker was saying was, everything that I've done in my life that was wrong, written in a book, it was saddling me. It was my baggage. It was what was holding me down. But when Jesus Christ came into my life, all of the things written down in this book of guilt and anger, Jesus Christ got them for me. And now I can be free from the lordship of anger. And that evening I made the decision. I said, I am making a right turn. It's a turning point. And I said that when I make this turn, I want two things. The first is I want freedom. I want freedom. And second, I will have a new Lord. No longer anger, but the Lord that will help me be free from that which have lorded over me my entire life. I hope that's the same thing that will happen to you today. So let me leave you with two more pieces of wisdom. At one point in my life, I saw a picture of Jesus Christ knocking at the door. And beneath the picture of Jesus Christ knocking at the door were these words from Revelations 3 verse 20. The words were, "Here I stand knocking at the door. If anyone hears me calling and opens that door, I will enter his house and have supper with him and he with me." I took a close look at the picture of Jesus Christ knocking at the door. The knock was like this. That means it's a silent knock. He was knocking, he wasn't banging on the door. And the door did not have a doorknob. And when I asked the speaker that night why the picture of the door did not have a doorknob, he said, because that is a door that can only be opened from the inside. Jesus Christ knocks, but I have to open. And finally, one more set of words I heard from the Bible. The words were, "If today you hear His words, harden not your heart." That was a fantastic turn in my life. And I'm glad I made the turn. Is it possible that today you're also at a turning point? If you are, open the door, harden not your hearts. The most important question really is, and perhaps the topic of the talk, is not really who is Jesus Christ. The topic of the talk is, who is Jesus Christ to you? I pray you find the answer. God bless you all, ladies and gentlemen.